It is unknown from which of the original legions the Silver Saviours come from, and it's even in the 41st millennium matter of great debate that the Silver Saviours themselves are curiously quiet about. Whenever they have been pressed, even by the Inquisition, they simply state they have no records of the time before the second founding. What makes it all the stranger is how detailed their history is after the second founding. Thousands of battlefields, dates from one reigning chapter master to another, and innumerable battle brothers who have served. Even when sending in their gene seed tithes, it has remained remarkably stable, leading some to believe they are related to other stable chapters. The first records of them place them in the Segmentum Pacificus, wherein they have established their own realm similar to that of Ultramar. This leads some to believe they are a successor of the Ultramarines, but their being on the opposite side of the galaxy and being highly codex divergent dispels this idea rapidly. In their realm they rule as feudal lords. It is said that if the home sectors of the Silver Saviours were ever cut off from the rest of the galaxy, they could still thrive. So vast is their own domain, possessing one forge world, although truly it belongs to the Mechanicus, but for that world the Mechanicus and Silver Saviours have an exclusivity agreement, protection in exchange for goods. 2 hive worlds, 5 agri-worlds, 1 pleasure world, 10 civilized worlds, a few waste worlds, mining worlds and industrial worlds, 1 great shrine world where the Sisters of Battle primary fortress is, 1 armory world, and constantly more recently conquered or explored frontier worlds in the largely unexplored Segmentum Pacificus. Whenever new territory becomes available, the chapter master distributes it as he sees fit, often for acts of great valor performed by an individual. And said individual does not have to be in the chapter, although it is far more common for them to be in it. Once the land has been granted, the individual is given all authority over it, so long as he or she stays within preset imperial laws. The individual is also expected to protect their holdings from all and any threats posed to it, but the benefit of this is that they receive a great deal of wealth from this territory and can muster imperial guard regiments, called auxiliaries, for their own use within it. The land being theirs, they will often develop it, sell it back to the chapter, imperium, or private citizens. Once a landholder dies, any land that had not been sold out of their possession is returned to the chapter to be distributed anew. This is done to prevent any individual or family from becoming too powerful or resting on the laurels of the previous generation, as the land can only be bought or earned, not inherited. Once, early in the chapter's history, in the 32nd millennium, a chapter master by the name of Louis granted all of the land to himself for the great power it brought him. Believing no one could stop him, he started to launch his own crusades against other imperial worlds, to expand his domain even further. He was despised by the rest of the Imperium for this, and his own chapter turned on him, along with nearly 100 planetary governors, the Adeptus Ministorum, and his own auxiliaries, all of which quickly disposed him. Since then, no one has dared to take too much land for himself, fearing the same fate. The chapter master is elected from the chapter's captains, all of whom receive 1 vote, along with the chief librarian, master tech marine, and the chief chaplain. At times, a chapter master will step down for any number of reasons, and he too will have 1 vote in whom will replace him. Then, whichever captain replaces him, he takes over the captain's company. For vehicle, one of the ways the Silver Saviours are codex divergent is that instead of having 10 different companies, all of theirs are equipped the same. The standard full force is 3 Devastator squads, 1 assault squad, and 1 tactical squad. For vehicles, each possesses 1 land speeder, 1 land raider, 1 autocannon predator, 1 lascannon predator, and 3 whirlwinds. Due to this and other divergent methods in relation to the Ultramarines and their successors are at best lukewarm, but at worst have led to one refusing to fight with the other. Recruitment methods also highly differ, as instead of a scout sergeant, though they still do have scouts, training several initiates into neophytes, and then deeming them full-fledged space marines, one battle brother will choose whomever he wants from amongst the populace, and the two will become inseparable until the trainer deems the initiate ready to set out on his own. If the trainer is an assault marine, he will train an assault marine into readiness, and the same for all classes of marine. This partnership can last for decades, or even a century. Due in part to this long and selective training process, the chapter is able to keep its total force in the vicinity of 1,000 space marines. In their long training process, they are taught how to do far more than fight. Because they often become governors over the land they receive, they are trained in this as well. As governors, they will often remain near their holdings, overseeing them, and are frequently seen amongst the people with whom they have warm relations. This has led to some speculating they are a successor of the salamanders, but due to their lack of dark skin, other similar traditions, or high use of flame weaponry, this too seems unlikely. Each battle brother in the chapter is trained to act as an individual and will often be seen as such. Unless a captain, which is rare, or the chapter master, which has only occurred thrice in the chapter existence, calls for all the battle brothers under his command to assemble, they will traverse the galaxy often as the only space marine in their group. Due to their great wealth, they will often purchase ships of their own, and even the lowliest battle brother owns at least one escort-class ship, with which and some auxiliaries he will traverse the galaxy to wherever he sees fit. At times of their own volition, a few battle brothers will move about in a group for a common goal, or if they request the aid of the other battle brothers. Due to this, the Silver Saviours, or one of their successors, have been present at nearly every major conflict in the galaxy, though they may only have been a handful of them. Once again, due to this free roaming style and the vast amount of time that has elapsed, 6 successor chapters have been made as needed. These 6 work in close harmony and operate the same, as if they are all still from the same chapter, which some fear makes them too strong, becoming too much like the legions of old. To speak of one is to speak of them all. The Silver Saviours are stationed in Segmentum Pacificus, the Selfless Shields are in Segmentum Solar in the Centaurus system, the Golden Guardians are in the western area of Segmentum Tempestus, Regal Repulsors are in Segmentum Obscurus, north of the Eye of Terror. The Defiant Defenders are in the southern part of Segmentum Ultima. The Stalwart Securers are in central Ultima and recently founded in northern Ultima, near the Ghoul Stars at the edge of the Astronomicon, are the Brave Buffers. As for their combat doctrine, it was set first by their first chapter master Flavius, who also is credited with their battle cry, "Protect the Weak," an intentional antithesis to that of Chaos, "Destroy the Weak." Upon arriving in their home system of Ficania Minor, they built their initial stronghold on the planet with the largest human population, also named Ficania. The rest of the system and sector at large was infested by the Orcs. Before Gilliman finished penning the Codex Astartes, but now at only roughly 1,000 marines, the Legion's methods would be foolhardy. Instead, they fortified their new homeworld, which has become one of the high worlds over the millennia, and once they believed it to be sufficiently fortified, taunting the Orcs into attacking them, going so far as to make songs out of it, where they would call the Orcs Snots and Grots. The Orcs had already been considering attacking, but this drove them into a frenzy. Throwing themselves against the well-prepared defences, they were slaughtered wholesale, and their numbers so diminished, the Silver Saviours were able to easily move in and seize several worlds the Orcs had had in their possession. Even their offensives are done in a defensive nature, however, leading more to think they are from the Imperial Fists, or a loyalist element of the Iron Warriors. Clearing a large space for a planetfall with ships in orbit, setting down a mass of forces and fortifying the area before advancing while building, calling it the Iron Crawl. Even once the war for the planet is over, these are kept in use often as civilian infrastructure, and as fortifications again if the planet is ever invaded. Once the Codex was finished, having developed their own method, they refused to abide by it completely, also concerned that having such a set of guidelines could make the Space Marines too predictable. One thing the Silver Saviours aspire to is to keep peace and order in the galaxy, seeing that as the Emperor's original vision of how the galaxy should be. Hence why they govern planets themselves, for the Space Marines were created to be more than brutal warriors. Their next great conflict was during the Age of Apostasy, wherein they had a civil war, and now they look upon this time with great shame. The reigning chapter master of the Silver Saviours was Nero, and the other chapter masters of the successors all were of one mind, that Gogor Vandir was truly the greatest man the Emperor had ever sent since himself and the Primarchs. Whereas most Space Marine chapters see the Emperor only as their father and not as a god, from spending so much time with the people they came to believe as they do. The Silver Saviours began to follow all of Vandir's orders, purging worlds without question. Many within the chapters began to see this as an affront to what they stood for, peace and order, as now they were acting almost as badly as a Chaos Warband. A captain by the name of Augustus proclaimed Nero and the others unfit to rule, and over half of the total Space Marines in the chapters joined him. They quickly seized the Forge World in the sector and its supporting agri-worlds. After the first offensive though, both sides still fought with a defensive nature, waiting for the other to make the first move, which neither did. Those under Nero, having abandoned the codes of the chapter, started producing combat servitors en masse, made from the local population. A weapon before, and now after the reign of Nero, the chapter considers an abomination, a defilement of humanity. Using mass servitors, they launched the bloody campaign against Augustus, but after some struggling, Augustus found that EMP weaponry could effectively disable the servitors, and being in control of the Forge World, gave him ample access to such weaponry. Nero's next plan was to burn the agri-worlds to starve out Augustus, and, with Nero having greater numbers, he could attack more locations than Augustus could defend. At the same time though, Augustus found a way to break the defensive stalemate by making a deal with the Munitorum. By giving up some other vehicles, they were able to obtain more Whirlwind and Basilisk tanks, which they have continued to employ in larger numbers than what is customary. With this extra siege equipment and much of Nero's forces away on the offensive, Augustus launched a counterattack and seized Nero's primary strongholds, killing Nero himself and crippling his army, which soon submitted to the rule of Augustus. Being too preoccupied recovering from their own civil war, they could not assist directly in disposing Gogor Vandir. After this, when the Sisters of Battle were formed in a form of repentance for assisting Vandir, they gave a well to the Ecclesiarchy, where the Covenant of the Sacred Guardians have built their primary fortress. Out of all the foes of the Imperium, the Silver Saviours despise pirates more than any others, seeing them as the ultimate affront to peace and order. They even see Imperial traders and rogue traders as suspicious, serving the highest bidding being no better than mercenaries in their eyes, who are also looked on with disdain. No honor in fighting solely for wealth.